You're listening to the Racer to Racer podcast presented by Race 92. Race 92 is a vintage-inspired racing apparel brand specializing in celebrating vintage race culture and adapting to motorsports today. Check out race92.com for all your racing merchandise needs. I'm your co-host, Aaron Mack. The other co-host you may have seen walking out of Barber Lounge, 459 with a big old smile on his face. You've probably seen him at a dirt track. He is the one and only Scott Bowie.
Hey, Aaron, how you doing, bud?
I am doing great. Just came back from Gateway Motorsports Park in St. Louis, Missouri, for the IndyCar weekend. Great weekend. We're gonna have a video coming out. Got to race go-karts with Robbie McGee. I teased it a little bit. What a great time that was with Jacob, friend of the show, who participated in the Jagger Jones video that we did at Fast Times. But yeah, great time.
Yeah, no, it looked like you had a really good time. You showed me the video. I've started to watch the final cut. I just haven't had a chance to take it all in yet. But yeah, you guys look like you had a lot of fun, and Gateway looked like it was pretty fun too. Dodging the rain the entire time.
Right. Well, it rained. It just rained. So it just rained on race day. Well, no, yeah, it rained on race day in the morning for like a minute, and then it stopped raining. David Land called me and he was like, "Is it going to rain more before I come?" Because he was still in Indy. And looked. I mean, they got the race in. So even if it would have been a washout at that point, after they already had over halfway, so they would have called it a race.
Right. It sure would have made a big difference for Scott McLaughlin, though.
Oh, no, yeah, absolutely. But man, the move of the race, though, man, Joseph Newgarden, I mean, just looks like cars are just standing still. And I know it was fuel strategy and, with the tires and all that, but that was incredible, man. I mean, being in the stands and just watching him just take off. I mean,
yeah, he really sliced through the field and just man, it wasn't even a race. For a little bit there, and he got away from Scott, and then David Malukas though come along and damn near made a hell of a race out of it. He charged from I think fourth or fifth on the restart up to second when he was within 0.6 at the line, and Newgarden had a bunch of traffic in front of him. It was a good chance that Malukas may have won that race. But obviously, if there was a next lap, there's a million race car drivers that could say that. But he had a great showing for Dale Coyne Racing. I mean, they have a lot to be proud of there.
Absolutely. I know he's been getting racy. More we've been getting into the season, he's had a couple good finishes. He ran good at Indy, obviously. And then the race before this one, or a couple races before this one, he was racing pretty well too. So he definitely has a lot of potential, and very impressive being a rookie.
Well, they asked him under the red flag, do you want the race to end now, or do you want to go back out? And he said, no, I want to go back out. He goes, I think I can get power. He goes, we were closing in on him. I think I can get him. And he obviously he did. And he got all the way to second. Pato Ward missed the podium for the first time at St. Louis. I think he ran fourth. But strange race, not a great race. That race, in my opinion, has to be run at night.
Mm-hmm.
Just having that in the daytime, honestly, I mean, the cars don't look as good.
Right.
The racing isn't as good. Someone said after the race that, at nighttime, track cools off. There's a lot more grip. They can do a lot more racing. And I'm not sure why they've changed that starting time for that race. But I would sure like to see them move that back about an hour and a half, and get that racing back at night again. It just I don't want to lose that race. And you see the crowds are starting to not show up. The stands for the last couple of years have been a little more empty than they were, say, in 2019, 2018. So I don't know. Makes me a little nervous when I start to see that. But it wasn't a horrible race. It just wasn't what we're used to seeing there. So hopefully they'll move that starting time back next year and get a better race and the fans will come out.
Yeah, I think it's definitely better racing tonight. And there's, I mean, they run Texas tonight. There's a lot of races they run a night, and I never really thought that the racing would be better tonight, but it makes sense, right? Track's cooler, there's more grip. So it makes total sense. I know Jimmy Johnson made a comment saying that he hopes they add more short ovals because obviously I mean, he's an oval master, right? I mean, he
Right.
proved that at Texas and Iowa.
Well, he didn't start off great at St. Louis.
Mhm.
He ran 14th, which not horrible.
No.
It's not where he wants to be, but it's not horrible.
Yeah, so it'd be great to, I don't think it'll ever happen, but Kentucky, um,
Yeah.
great track.
You wish for the Kentuckys of the world to come back. You wish for the Milwaukees of the world to come back, and I don't know if they ever will or not, but you sure hope they do.
Right. So, as we said, before we get into any other racing news, our show this week is Rhianon Gelsomino. She's, something a little different. She's not a driver, but she is a co-driver, which is totally different, concept for probably a lot of people. It's different, America Rally Association, States Rally Racing. She was Travis Pastrana's co-driver. They won the championship last year. She's been a World Rally, and it was a great discussion. And she was saying she's a fan of all motorsports, so she enjoyed doing it. And yeah, I mean, we talked to her after we recorded the podcast for a little while. I mean, just very, very nice individual. And, I've always been a big fan of Travis. And so obviously I'm familiar with who she is. Her husband it is Ken Block's longtime co-driver, has always been his co-driver since he started. So, yeah, no, it was a great talk. And, I've always been a big fan of rally racing. And just recently, the past 3 or 4 years, we started going to a couple of races, at least one race a year. And I love it. So I knew definitely wanted to talk to somebody involved with rally racing.
No, it was, and as I said last week, her enthusiasm for it is very infectious. It's a world that I don't know hardly anything about, so it was really interesting to hear her talk about it, and it was enjoyable. And honestly, it kind of made me want to go watch a race just talking to her. So I'm sure I'll go with you guys and check out a race at some point. Other than that, who we got next week?
We have Tom Osborne. And that's somebody that, people may not know the name right off the bat, but he's done he's been I guarantee you, if you're a big fan in IndyCar racing, of something, at least one thing that he's been involved with, a major part of. And even as you will find out, even if you're not a fan of auto race, I promise you he was involved with something that you probably are aware of.
That many, 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 many people are very familiar with. So check out Tom. He has next week because it was a really fun talk. He's always been a really nice guy to me. I've known him for a very long time. But yeah, we'll get into a little more next week on our introduction of him. But please check it out because you will probably be very surprised at what he has done and really kind of still continues to do in the world of not only racing but just in general. So yeah, no, that was a fun one and such a great guy.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Great guy. And so other news, NASCAR was at Watkins Glen. I think the big story from that was Kimi Räikkönen, racing. I know he did a test a couple weeks ago at Virginia, and that was kind of a weird deal. Virginia International Raceway, because they have rules, NASCAR's rules, right, where you can't test their car unless it's approved or whatever. But he tested a car similar to a NASCAR that was prepared by a different team,
Right.
So I don't know, but you know, he has experience driving NASCAR, and you said I didn't watch the NASCAR race, but you did say that he got up to in the top 15. So I
He
mean, he
was
was.
he was running strong, and he may have gotten a little further forward than that. Just at different points I was watching, he was running about between 12th and 15th. Really battling out with damn good race car drivers, and he got caught up in something that wasn't his fault, and he got crashed, put him out of the race. But yeah, he was good. He made a good showing for himself, and I think it's one of those deals where it'd be kind of fun if he did some more of the road courses next year, maybe some of the
I
short
think he
track
will. Yeah.
stuff. Just I just think it's neat to have guys like that around. I mean, he's a world champion, he's a great race car driver, and it's fun to have those guys around. So yeah, hopefully this is not just a one and done or a once a year type thing.
Is Kimmy officially retired now, or I don't even know.
Well, he's not officially,
I mean,
obviously, because he's
is
still
he?
running, but
He's still running NASCAR. I mean, Formula One this year, right?
not that I'm aware of.
Okay. You see, I'm not even. I don't know. I should know. I knew he did last year, I believe. So
Yeah,
he
I'm
retired from
pretty
F1, I think.
positive he hasn't run. Pretty positive he hasn't run. Now, I'll probably be the one wrong in this deal because I'm wrong a lot, but I don't think he is though. Who did he run for last year?
Alfa Romeo.
Yeah,
I think,
I
or
really
something.
don't think he is, but
Yeah. Yeah, he may not be. So is there anything else as far as racing series that we're missing?
me and my short track stuff. Cody Swanson at Gateway dominated, um, as he does a lot. He ran a lap. He's running straightaway speeds of pretty much 180 mile an hour. He set a new track record for those cars, and then I'm not sure how they gauge that, but it was like a kind of a close course record for a Silver Crown car as well, like 146 mile an hour average speed, 146, 47. But those cars are super fast at places like Gateway. And anybody that drives them will talk about how when you're driving down the straightaways, the back of the car starts to actually lift a little bit because it starts packing air underneath the fuel tanks. So, they'll want to start spinning the tires a little bit down the straightaway. Um, but they had a pretty good field of cars. Unfortunately, just not a lot finished. A lot of attrition. But what else? Buddy Kofoid, Jesse Love won the ARCA race at Springfield. Buddy Kofoid, unfortunately, was caught up in a nasty crash on the front straightaway. A car got in the fence, stopped, and nowhere to go, and hit the stop car. I mean, it was like bang bang type accident, and got the guy upside down. But he hit, that had just be a massive collision. But everybody was okay from the sounds of things. Unfortunately, a friend of mine got hurt. I want to say get well, Kent Schmidt. He crashed at Putnamville. Uh, Not sure quite the extent of his injuries. Had some neck and back stuff kind of going on. So they have to wait for the swelling to go down to really check out and see how he's doing. So, uh, quick recovery, Kent. I don't know. Pretty much that kind of covers it for me, I believe. I see where Andretti is opening up a technology center up north of Indianapolis and Fishers by the airport. News came to me through someone else, Jennifer Fountain, who saw that and thought that might be something I'd be interested in seeing. So I was. And so I'm not sure what's in the technology. I don't know if it's the expansion of kind of what they're already doing. But that's going to be interesting to see kind of what they're doing there, and it's going to be for all of their divisions. So that's pretty big news. That tells me that if one team's doing it, there will be more teams doing it. Other than that, that's pretty much all I got.
Well, we joked about it last week or the past couple weeks, but I have read 2 books in the past month, which is a new record for me. So the first book that I read was because this gentleman sent it to me before we had him on the podcast, Randy Lanier's Survival the Fastest, which is out now. So if you don't have it, get it and read it, because it is a great read if you're interested in racing, obviously, or it's just an interesting story no matter what. He sold the script or whatever to a movie company. I think they're going to make a movie out of it. So definitely highly recommend. The second book, which I did not have ready at all, another one of our former guests, Alistair Jr., A Checkered Past. You get that as well. This has been out a little longer than the Rhianon Lanier book. The Rhianon Lanier book came out beginning of August. This was last year?
Last year,
yeah. Also a great read. Love the smell of new books, right?
Yeah, I do. I'm a big fan of the smell of new books.
Yep. So check it out. And the next book I'm going to read is probably going to be Paul Page, the Hello, I'm Paul Page. So
yeah, man, those are I'm sure they're all great books. I've got to read them myself. Is there anything that you want to announce?
I don't think so.
All right. We'll save that. We'll save that, I guess, for next week.
Yes, we will. We have some announcements, right? We'll have the Robbie McGee video coming out here pretty soon. Yeah, well, I edited pretty much all day on Sunday, and yeah, so I think it's looking pretty good. And he's, I think he said he's 49 years old, and he hasn't raced professionally for 15, 16 years. But yeah, a professional driver is a professional driver. I did learn that. I thought, there's about 5 seconds during that race where I thought, yeah, I can race this guy. And then until I realized I couldn't. And that was into that. I just looked over, he was on one side, and I just barely blinked, and there he was. I was looking at his back bumper. So there's a reason why professional driver is a professional driver.
That's right. That's why there's the professionals.
And Jacob, hopefully he didn't hurt Jacob's ego too much, but poor Jacob. He passed me just as bad as he did Jacob, but he got Jacob in the bad turn, and he came in on the inside, and yeah, he's quick. In the way we started, and you'll see once the video comes out, he started in front of all of us, so he kind of took off, and he slowed up, which I'm glad he did, because if he didn't slow up, we would have probably never been able to really, because the track's so long, right? It's like 50-second laps. So, we obviously, he's going quite a bit faster than us, but I don't know if he would have had enough time to actually catch up with us when we were going that slow. But so he slowed up, and he let Jacob pass him, then me pass him, and he raced with us a little bit, which is pretty cool. Racing as a former Indy 500 driver, Indy 500 Rookie of the Year, right? It's pretty cool. So, man, this podcast is just, we've got to do things that I would have dreamed of being able to do. Sure. So I'm thankful for that. And there's a lot of other cool things coming. And yeah, no, it's cool to be able to race against that's the closest I'm going to get to the Indy 500, right? Racing an Indy 500 driver.
To be fair, you rode in the back of the 2-seater. That's maybe a little closer, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. No, it's closer. That absolutely is closer. But no, it's good.
Yeah, it is funny. And I've had that conversation before. Is these guys, and and Robbie's a great guy, cool guy, and people forget that he was the Rookie of the Year at Speedway, and that he nearly won races and all those types of things, right? And but so an average person's like, until you get on the racetrack with him and you realize, oh, this guy's very talented.
I rode in a pace car. I rode in a pace car once with Larry Foy, and it was the most. if you were blindfolded, you say, this guy's Mario Andretti driving. I mean, a professional driver is a professional driver. Larry Ford was a decent driver. I'm not saying he wasn't, but, he obviously isn't AJ Foyt or, Mario, Michael Andretti, anyone like that. But end of the day, he's a professional driver. And even if you find the worst professional driver, you get in a car with him, he's going to be pretty good.
There's a really funny thing, especially it seems to be more magnified in Indy type cars, Formula One cars, these types of race cars, where if you don't have great setups, like if you just don't have the engineers at the time or what have you, you can take a really great race car driver and they're qualifying 18th, 20th, 22nd, 16th, not finishing much better. And it's that is kind of the unfortunate part of this sport, especially that part of the sport is sometimes you never get to see maybe how good that person really was, and you only have this body of work to judge him from when it may not be accurate at all.
So I got to go kart racing because all the karts are equal. At least
there you go.
This time
they're all equal.
They're fast, man. They go about 60 mile an hour in the straightaway. I was telling you before, I was knelt down trying to get aerodynamics, trying to pull some Jagger Jones. I made a couple moves, so I had to run by Jagger to see if he approved.
That's funny. Well, you pointed out the lean. The lean's what saved you.
The lean saved me. So yeah,
the lean saved you.
Yeah, it was pretty crazy. But yeah, no, definitely stay tuned for that. And yeah, Robbie, really special thanks to Robbie for that. He was super generous with his time, and he enjoyed it. And his mom was actually there with him as well. And she's a big fan of racing. And if you're familiar with Robbie's story, listen to our podcast. When he started racing, his dad got him and his mom both Skip Barber Racing school,
right.
Whatever you call it. And there's a funny it's on YouTube. There's a funny like commercial for the Indy Racing League. I was telling you about it with him and his mom. It's pretty funny. So definitely look that up. They both got pulled over by the police, and it was just a funny story. They were racing each other. But yeah, no. So definitely stay tuned for next week for Tom Osborne. Great guy. And make sure you hit like and subscribe if you haven't already. Hit like and subscribe on YouTube. Also, check us out on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, anywhere where podcasts can be found. Give a shout out to good friend of the show, Racer Collect, Patrick Patton. We haven't talked about him for a little while, but he's still out there doing his thing. So definitely check out racercollect.com if you're looking, for any specific racing memorabilia. And until next week, hope everyone has a great week.
Yeah, I just can't I can't second that anymore. I hope everybody has a great week, and please tune in. Obviously, you're here listening to this one. Please tune in next week to Tom, because you will not be disappointed. And take care, everybody.
Our guest today is currently a rally co-driver for Subaru Team USA for Travis Pastrana and the American Rally Association. We're joined by Rhianon Gelsomino. Rhianon, thank you so much for joining us. Big fan of rally. So obviously, if you've seen any of our videos or anything, mostly we're located in Speedway, Indiana. So the big thing here, obviously, is Indy 500, IndyCar racing. That's a lot of people that we interview, but I kind of grew up in my racing heroes were people like Travis Pastrana and Ken Block. And in the past 5 years, I've been to several rally races. So I've, became a really big fan of rally racing. So I knew, once me and Scott had this platform that we want to kind of cover rally racing more and, maybe get a little bit more into it. So we definitely appreciate you coming on.
Oh, it's fantastic. I love doing all types of podcasts where we talk about motorsport. I'm a bit like when you're talking about all the different motorsport you guys are into, I'm into everything as well. So if it's Formula One on the weekend, or I was watching the X Games the other day, so enjoyable different things and meet new people.
Right, absolutely. Let's talk a little bit about how you got interested in racing, and more importantly, how you got into rally co-driving.
I come from motorsport family, so for me it was pretty easy, to be honest. For a lot of people, it's harder because they don't have the opportunities I have. Both of my brothers are rally drivers, so I was really immersed, and I grew up with motorsport all around me. So I guess for me, it was something that I was born into, which is a lucky thing because so many people contact me saying, how do I get into motorsport? And for me, being born into it, it's a lot easier than your normal everyday person that doesn't really know how to take that first step.
Yeah, absolutely. And Scott comes from a family of racing, so he can definitely
Yeah,
speak
I
on
can
behalf
relate.
of that.
We get dragged to all the racetracks and
Yeah,
all those things.
I went to my first race. I was 4 weeks old.
Yeah, it's pretty funny actually because I'm one of four. I'm the oldest of four. So there's it goes Gilboy, and so the third is my sister. And she went to her first rally that Dad was doing when she was 2 weeks old, and she doesn't like rally. So I think that her being dragged at that young age turned her off, whereas I think that Dad and the boys were happy that they convinced one of the girls to do it.
So, did you ever think about actually being a driver? Like, did that ever, or how'd you go from being a driver to obviously like a co-driver?
I did some karting when I was young.
Mhm.
Both of my brothers were really big in karting, and my dad told me I couldn't get my driver's license until I did some karting. And then after that, when I had my driver's license, I got a Datsun 1600, as we call it in Australia. And I did autocross, and autocross is a little bit different to what we have in America. In Australia, it's about a 2 kilometer stage, like a rally stage, like a rally sprint. And you usually get runs a day and your best three get added together, and it's always gravel, as a lot of people say in America. So I did that for quite a fair few years, and did really well in that. And then I was a PE teacher at the time. I love sport in general. And then who's the youngest, Brendan, he was about 16, 17. I'm 8 years older, and my dad started saying that he thought I should start learning to be a co-driver. And prior to that, honestly, I never thought about actually being a co-driver. I used to get really car sick. I always had to sit in the front of the car or the school bus or those sort of things. And then, yeah, when Dad came up with this idea and I could learn off his co-driver, who was really good co-driver in our state in Victoria, I started to think that this was a pretty cool idea. So my other brother, Nathan, who was only 2 years younger, I did my first few rallies with him. So he was my test dummy. He was a good enough brother to let me get in with him and be sick and all those fun things that happen when you're starting out. And then after a few races with him, I worked with some other experienced drivers, because as soon as my brother Brennan was turning 18, Dad wanted us in the car together. So he raced with Dad's co-driver to get experience when he was 17. And then a couple of weeks after he turned 18, Dad decided we both had gained enough experience and we could get in the car together. And that partnership's been pretty incredible because I've done over 80 rallies with him in something like 15 or 16 countries. Junior World Championship we did in 2011, 2012. We won the American Two-Wheel Drive Championship in 2013. We come runners up in the Australian Rally Championship in 2014. So that idea that Dad had brewing all those years ago has been the reason I've got where I am today, as far as traveling around, getting the experience and things like that. So I definitely have my dad to thank for that.
So now obviously there's a bunch of, and I know you and your husband run a rally co-driving school, right?
Yeah, I was really pro and co-drivers, so you can either come and learn to do driver pace notes, which is obviously the notes they write for the stage and the co-driver calls. So even though we're not drivers, all the experience we've had throughout the years has taught us to write very good notes, even though, that's not our. So we teach co-driver training as far as, from starting from novice all the way to giving experienced people more training, or we do team training. So a driver and co-driver would come, and usually for two co-driver, it's one-on-one with Alex and I. And we would run through how the driver has to write the pace notes, how the co-driver will, take the notes down, deliver them, all those sort of things, video analysis. We teach them everything that we virtually learned with Alex and I championship all those years. And yeah, so we've trained, I think, over 400 students now between America, Australia, New Zealand. Some online overseas. We had someone come here from Barbados. So it's been really successful. I'm in Australia only just before the last New England Forest Rally. And in that time, in Canberra, I trained 21 co-drivers on my own, and in Victoria, I trained 12. So I trained 33 co-drivers when I was home for 2.5 weeks. So it's definitely popular, and it's something that we're really proud of.
Yeah, is the sport, do you think, starting to catch on more in America?
Yeah, I mean, in the last couple of years, I'm really proud to say that American Rally has really developed. Alex and I, with Oz Rally Pro, we started in December 2013. And one of our big pushes for American rallying was to move from what we called a pass convoy recce of Gemba notes, which is supplied pace notes. We all go in convoy, one car after the other, to do our reconnaissance. So drivers over here really weren't building their own pace note system. They were just, working with the supplied notes. So Alex and I really saw there was a big gap in, the World Rally Championships, the American Rally Championship. And even for us, I've raced in the Scottish, British, New Zealand, Asia Pacific, all sorts of championships all over the world. And you always would do 2-pass reconnaissance, write your own pace notes. And then obviously what you saw on the road was what you were telling, in the stage when you're going flat out. So we saw that there was a little bit of a gap here in America, and we were, I guess, a little bit behind. So the good thing was, with our training school, we were able to really encourage people that, hey, we need to push that in America. We need to start doing 2-pass reconnaissance. We need to start writing our own pace notes to develop and become better. We need to do this. Well, it's really taken off. ARA listened really well. The people running it, some of them we've even trained, which is awesome. And so now every single national round in the American Rally Association Championship is a minimum 2-pass recce where you can write your own notes. And, I think that that's been a huge thing. We've had quite a lot of international people coming and doing in our championship. The numbers have grown immensely. Like sometimes we'll have rallies where we have over 100 competitors, which in America, that was unheard of when I first started racing. I'm really proud that, it's really come on here at the moment. If you look at the top of the field, we've got Ken Block in a world car. Our Subaru team has really had to develop our cars in the last year to keep up with that car and develop it more. So it's a great national championship. The challenge is really great at the top. We've got some good competitors in there, and I'm really proud, from grassroots all the way to the factory teams.
Now, so you talk about being a co-driver with your brother. So at what point did you be a co-driver for someone outside of that? So outside of your family, like what was that progression like for you?
Yeah, so I mean, right from word go, I worked with a few different people, but then from about, I'm trying to think, probably 2006 to 2013, I really focused mainly working with Brennan, my brother. But throughout my career, I'm nearly at 200 rallies now, and I've worked with over 30 drivers. So it's been a matter of, if Brennan wasn't doing something, I'd work with someone else. But there was a point in time when I was a PE teacher, I was trying to do both, co-driving, teaching, whatever, and taking time off work when you're on holidays. That's when you're meant to take your holidays, not halfway through the year when you want to go do a car race for a week in the Australian Rally Championship sort of thing, or the Asia Pacific, or whatever it might have been. So my principal at the school was really good. She'd always get me time off. And then it got to a point where I had a really 2009 with my brother, and I unfortunately broke my legs in 9 places, and I couldn't work for 16 weeks. And the school was like, man, we've already given this teacher all this time off, and now she goes and gets hurt doing this crazy sport and then takes this time off. So it got to the end of 2009, and the school sort of said, are you going to be here or not? So I decided to quit teaching and go full-time rallying from that point in time, because I realized I'd built enough experience. It was a huge risk because teaching in Australia pays pretty well. You've got good holidays. all those sort of things. So I decided to take that risk, and I become a full-time professional co-driver from 2010. So that mean, not only working with my brother, but working with countless different drivers, like a contractor, I guess you'd say. Like, I'm a contractor and Alex is as well, and we're available to drivers and teams to employ for races. So obviously when the Travis deal come up in 2020, when COVID hit, same sort of thing. He contacts me, I'm a professional co-driver, will you do this race with me? No problem. You agree on amount, and then you go do the race together. So it's obviously developed since then, but right now I'm just working with Travis last year and this year, because it's a really good deal for me, and I love working with him. But I'm a contractor, like a builder, I guess, and people can employ me to work with them.
How long has Alex been with? Sorry, Scott.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, how long has Alex been with Ken?
He has been with Ken since the start of Ken's career. So,
oh wow, that's what I thought. Yeah.
Yeah. So 2005, I think they might have started or something. So Alex was already a co-driver. He'd already done some professional rides and things like that. And then, Ken was coming in. He'd done Team O'Neill Rally School, and he fell in love with rally, and he needed a professional co-driver. So Alex stepped in that point too. But Alex also had a business at that time. So he was a bit like me with my teaching and stuff. So in 2010, that's when he sold his business and went full-time as well. So Alex and I started dating in 2012, but we both sort of went through that same process before we met each other of, having to take that risk of quitting that full-time job we had to go do this passion and love of rally that we had. So, I mean, it's been awesome because we both rally all over the world, but we've also got a training business. So I still get to teach, which I love. And we get to share our knowledge with so many people. So it's been pretty cool that we both, didn't really know it. Well, we were always racing each other, but didn't really know each other that well. And then all of a sudden, he's my husband, and we do what we do. And it's been pretty incredible, to be honest.
What, obviously the one thing that the co-driver, however you want to say it, has to be is calm. And what process, because that's not a natural thing. I mean, it's just not natural to be calm when somebody's just racing through these narrow roads and forest, or whatever it is. What kind of process was that? What kind of training did you have to do to get yourself to where you could just be that level, calm, smooth voice?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's helped that I was raised in Australia with a crazy family. So we'd be racing our dirt bikes around, and Dad'd be like pushing us off, and oh, you kids, come on, go faster. So I was definitely raised a wild child, which helps. And then I was, getting in cars with my dad and brothers from a young age. So the speed thing really wasn't a fear for me, if that makes sense. For my sister, it definitely was. She'd be happy to ride a horse flat out across a paddock, but she wouldn't get in a race car. So it was quite funny. But I think that one of the biggest challenges I've faced is, so when working with my brother in the stage, we're very focused. We don't talk to each other. Well, I obviously talk to him,
Right.
calling the notes, but, I never hear from him in the stage. I'm just focused on my job, delivering the notes. Getting in with Travis has definitely been a challenge, because if you've ever watched any of our onboards, Travis is a driver who does like to talk and does like to tell you if he thinks you're about to crash and all those sort of things. So, keeping calm. One of the biggest things I say to people is, it's a good thing to get your heart rate in the rally car to know, where your body is functioning when it is just sitting in that. So, a lot of times you'll find your heart rate's between 120 to 150. So if you go for a run and you go for, say, your heart rate's probably going to be somewhere between 120 and 150. So people don't realize that even though they're sitting in that car, their heart rate is quite elevated because of what the body is going through. Even though I'm not feeling fear, I'm sure my body is feeling some sort of anxiety and fear, even though I'm able to, keep that within myself. So when you're sitting in with Travis and he's like going towards trees, and he's like, we're going to die. And like your head's down, and all of a sudden you hear we're going to die. And, so it'll be interesting because I wear like, heart rate monitor and stuff. And I see these peaks. and shit back on the onboard, it'll be like we've just had this big moment. And if I'm with, say, my brother on a big moment, he doesn't really say much. He might say, hold on, you know what I mean? Whereas Travis make it very, there's all on in the stage. So it's been interesting for me, because sometimes when that commentary is going on, my tone and my voice gets higher and becomes more pitchy, and you can hear a little bit of fear come in, because I've had the concentration broken of reading the notes, head down, filling the car, looking up when I need to all of a sudden this, whatever Travis has said. And then the concentration, I have to get back down. So you hear a change in my pitch. And so that's been something we've done 15 races together. And every so often he still scares me with something he says. And I can definitely hear my pitch, change. So it's definitely something I try to work on, because I know that if that happens, I try not to say something, or sometimes he'll be like, did you hear me say? And I'm like, yeah, I heard, but I had to call 3 notes that were coming really fast. So if I had have acknowledged you at that point in time, I wasn't getting those notes out. So it's quite an interesting combination, working with him and I together.
Yeah, that's that just seems to me like the obviously the most important part of the job is the calmness and being able to enunciate and speak clearly, and you're doing it in these conditions that are just adverse to all of it.
Yeah, and I guess when training people, it's a big thing that we need to teach them. Like, there's a lot of people that are in the car and they're very monotone and they're going along and they're like, I'm doing a good job, I'm not showing I'm scared, I'm just monotone, I'm not showing. And yeah, but the way that you use inflection in your tone and voice is a way that you also help with the delivery of the notes. So that's also important, because if there's a danger coming in the notes, where if you go off there, you may never come back. And if you just call it a danger, left 330, you know what I mean? Like, the driver's not snapping into that, hey, listen, you know what I mean? So it's really interesting how in the job that I do, that you do use different tones in your voice and things like that to help with your driver to listen to what's happening, and yes, you have to remain very calm, like you mentioned, but at that same time, you've got the calmness, and then here's a tight corner that's dangerous, and then you've got the calmness again. So that pitch and change in tone is so important. And look, some people, monotone is just their way, so it's hard to teach them, or some people are too pitchy, it's yelling at the driver. So when we're training people, it's sometimes quite hard to find that balance, because some of that I feel is a little bit natural, like how you speak or enunciate words or pronounce words or things like that. So it's always an interesting scenario with all those things.
I would think, like, when you're getting in a passenger seat as a co-driver with someone that's about to go 150 mile an hour between trees, I would think you'd have to develop a pretty high level of trust with that person, right? Like, you're not just going to get in with anyone.
No. And look, I'm really particular. They have to have the halo seats, that have the around my head, so that if we have a side impact, I feel safe about that. I like to check out what their roll cage looks like. I need to make sure the seat's fitted well to my body. I'm not just going to get in with anyone. There's a lot of people like, oh, I'm doing this ride. And I'm like, well, I wouldn't get in that car. You know what I mean? Like, right. You hit a tree at 100, you may not survive that. Whereas I want to hit a tree at 100 and I'm perfectly fine, sort of thing. So it's definitely when 2020, when COVID really hit, I worked with 7 drivers that year, just, because everything went quiet for a while. We didn't do 14 weeks, I think, with no rallies. And when this is your full-time job, we couldn't do Oz Rally Pro training either. So, I'm jumping with driver to driver, one rally here, and it's fine. You learn a lot, but at the same time, you learn people not to go with again. So it's an interesting thing. And for me, the trust thing is about building it. So when I do the reconnaissance with the driver, making sure that I feel comfortable with the notes they're writing. And, we record all the reconnaissance with a GoPro. We're going to go over it together at double speed and make sure everything's good. So if I see that the driver is maybe, a little inconsistent or things like that, I'm lucky with my experience, I can pick up on that and help them. Even when I go on with Travis, I've taught Travis a lot of things that he didn't know, just because I spent many years in the World Rally Championship, whereas he's more raced here in America. So he didn't know how to do the video analysis that I'd learned. So when I was able to show him to do that at double speed, you know, we've done 15 races together and had one crash. So for Travis, it's really helped distancy, because before he would finish recce and, you know, that was it sort of thing. Then you go race, whereas now we listen and we watch the videos at double speed, we check all our notes. He becomes a lot more familiar with what's going on in stage, rather than doing it once, doing it twice, and then going and doing it in the rally. So there's a lot of things that you can do to help build trust, but it takes a lot of work at the same time, because the videos and all those sort of things are hours of work, and I'm usually getting 3-4 hours sleep each night at a rally.
If so, a typical rally. So if you look at a typical rally weekend. So obviously, you guys come in like a day early, right? You do the rally recce the day before.
Yeah. So a typical rally, we would usually arrive Tuesday. We would do some testing on Wednesday. On Thursday, we would do reconnaissance, and then we would race all day Friday, Saturday. That's a usual USA national round. Sometimes they might shift it to Saturday, Sunday, but generally in America, that would be how it'd be. So I'd usually leave here Tuesday, come back home Sunday, and that's how that week would be broken down. So usually from the time I leave to the time I get home, maybe 3-4 hours sleep each night, just because, you know, you're working on stuff every night for the race. And at the end of the day, you finish, for example, we say we do 3 stages, and then we do a 30-minute service, and then we repeat those 3 stages. So you're going to do the same 3 stages again. When we're driving back into the service, I'm already getting those videos off the GoPro. So when we're doing, you know, quickly eating in a 30-minute service, we're already reviewing those videos to see, hey, where did we lose time here? Where can we go faster? And those sort of things. So there's a lot of work involved that I learned from my WRC days, but it's also meant that, you know, Travis and I won the championship last year. Unfortunately, this year he had the base jumping accident at the start of the year, so it's put us a bit behind, and we're playing catch up. So we need to win the last 3. So let's see if that's possible if we keep doing our homework and work hard.
Yeah, so I've been to 3 ARA races. First one I went to was 100 Acre Wood. This was several years ago. This was when Ken was doing the Kazi World Tour. So Travis wasn't doing it. That's when Oliver was. But last year we went to the Ohio Forest Rally, and then this year went to it as well. And I just really like it. Like you said, I mean, we came, I think this year was 3 days, right? Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Yes. Yeah. We came Friday and Saturday, but it's just something like, if no one's ever experienced it, I highly recommend it, because it's just a different, I mean, you don't have to pay anything to go to these races. Which is the best part, right? I mean, how many races can you go to not have to pay? Not very many.
I think the biggest thing to explain to people with rally is that, you know, we're not just on a circuit that you can sit and watch. You know, you have to get out to one stage, and your spectators go past one corner, and then you'll quickly get to another stage, or you'll go to service park. Or I think that, I mean, a lot of my friends enjoy that part of it, because you are moving around, you know what I mean? But I've had a lot of people say, oh, I only got to see you on one corner. And it's like, I'm really sorry, but that's what rally is, you know what I mean? We're out in forests, we're out in remote areas. But I try and explain to friends, if they ever come, that, hey, when you go out to a spectator area, watch 50 cars go through. Don't just, you know, watch me and then take off, because it's fun, you know what I mean? You can see the fast people, that you can see the grassroots guys that have built their own car and they're coming through as well. So, you know, enjoy that part of it, versus thinking that you have to go from stage 1 to stage 3 to stage 5 and try and see people on one corner every time, and you don't really get in the spirit of rally and enjoy it as much.
Yeah, that's Aaron's dream right there. Aaron wants us to build a rally car.
Yeah, if I ever get a lot of money, I think that's the type of racing I would get into. It seems like when you look at all the different types of racing, I mean, that would probably be maybe one of the more affordable types of racing, really, when you look at it.
Yeah, for sure. I think that, especially in America, the grassroots rally is a lot more affordable. Like, because we don't have to build our cars to the FIA specs, which you do in a lot of the countries, it means that people can, you know, get a car, get a cage in it, and build it up to the spec that they want to race, versus, hey, you have to get this FIA spec car and it's going to cost you $100,000, and it puts a lot of people out. You know what I mean? There's a lot of people that are racing on really small budgets that have if a lot of them have come and trained with us, you know what I mean? There's some people that have come and done, like our training is $1,000 a day if you're one-on-one, but there'll be people who say, we are missing the next rally to do your training because we know that we'll find speed. And then we'll get an email afterward. They're like, we just went 5 seconds a mile quicker. And it's like, brilliant. So, it's one of those things that the grassroots rallying over here is really cool. And I definitely think it's a good way to get into the sport.
So when you look, so the thing that I was trying to understand, like the first time I went to a rally, like obviously it's free to go to. I mean, well, where do you think like the big like return on investment is for like sponsors or whatever to get involved in rally racing? Because I mean, it's not on TV, but obviously, it's big on social media. Obviously, Subaru has the Subaru launch control, which I absolutely love. I always watch those. They do a really good job with those. But where is it? I mean, is that right? Would you say like the big return on investment? Like if a sponsor gets involved in it, basically I mean, really you're kind of banking on social media and those type of platforms, right?
Yeah, that's the hardest part of our sport. And I think that's why we don't see many sponsors coming in. You know what I mean? You have your Ken, you have your Travis, you have your Brandon. But at the end of the day, most people are just privateers rallying on their own money that they've worked hard for, sort of thing. So it's a problem all over the world, to be honest. In the World Championship, we have WRC Live, which you can watch, which is great. So obviously live onboards, live out, stages and all those sort of things. But that costs a lot of money. So here in America, like you say, we rely on social media. So when the great thing is for rallying right now, we do have Ken and Travis here and Brandon as well. And they have huge followings. So the cool thing is that even though we're only here in America racing, we don't have the live TV or anything like that. We have these guys posting about it. So, if Ken's Instagram has 7 million followers, for example, and Travis's has, I don't know, over 4 million, we've got a target over 11 million people just on Instagram all over the world talking about these races. So, the years when it was David Higgins and you didn't really have Travis racing much or Ken racing much, David is great, but I'm sure his followers are, I don't know, 100,000 people or something. So the target audience is through social media. And so for sponsors, as far as that's concerned, anyone getting into it, I think the biggest thing that they need to be able to provide sponsors is, value for their money. And how do you provide them value for the money? Well, through social media, but also things like ride days, getting your sponsors in the car, taking them for a ride, showing them what rally is like. If you really want to get people involved and sponsors and stuff, you have to look outside the box in rally, because at the end of the day, we're not a normal motorsport where people go and sit there and they watch the same, car go round and round. They see that sponsor 20 times, lap after lap. In rally, that's not the case. So you need to, my brother and I had a supporters club. So the first year we did the Junior World Championship, Pirelli paid because my brother won a Pirelli Star Driver Scholarship that we won a shootout in the World Championship. So the first year Pirelli paid for it. The second year we needed to raise around $300,000. So our family business was able to put in $150,000, but how do you find $150,000? It's not easy. So we started a supporters club and we would sell names on the hood of our car. And I always said to people, that's a really great way to get people involved, because for us, that was in the World Championship. We would sell it for $200 per name, and your name would be on the hood of a car. You could take photos or whatever, and all of a sudden you're a sponsor of a rally car. You know what I mean? So I always said, people, I can't do this and that. And I'm like, okay, well, just think of things differently. We would have functions then, and we would have auctions. We would auction off things and things like that. So it was a lot of work, but at the same time, we got to do the Junior World Championship again. So, I think it's just about thinking about things differently, thinking of ways to encourage sponsors to be involved and showing them what a cool sport it really is.
Yeah, I agree. I think that, and that's so important for all of motorsport, really. I mean, the old saying is, how fast you want to go, or how much money you have, and it's never not been true. And, and it's at every level of the sport, seemingly. And, yeah, and I think you're right. I think you just got to be creative. And there, with social media today, that is a great way to show value to your sponsors. And, and there are some people who have done it just remarkably well. And it just seems like that's become, so important, especially in these 16, 17, 18-year-old people wanting to come through any rank of motorsport. They got to show that people are interested in them, you know?
Yeah. And I mean, even when we train young people like that are new in the sport and you look at their Instagram and we're like, okay, you're trying to get a sponsor on board, but right now I look at your Instagram and I see, inappropriate things, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? Because they're young, they're 18, they're 19, and they're not thinking about that. And I said, anything you post on social media is now something that someone can look at and make a judgment on you, even though it's not, the way you might be. So I think it's always, social media is a great thing because it has given us, a broader scope of people that we can reach out to and a greater following. But at the same time, it's easy to also annoy someone and piss them off and they never want to sponsor you. So it's real. You have to be very careful of judgments you make, posts you make, and how you decide to make a plan to keep your sponsors happy. You know what I mean? So I think that's all, a lot of teams will say to them, what is your plan for social media? And they'll say social media plan. Well, okay, what are you going to achieve this weekend with the rallying to help show your sponsors that you gave them value for their money? And they're like, oh, we're so busy at a rally, like we'll post after it. And I'm like, you can't.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, you need to be posting on your Instagram story. You need to be making posts on your actual, feed that's coming out, so that then they feel engaged, because they might be struggling to find results online or videos online. So you need to be the one showing the sponsors that you're engaging the audience, rather than the sponsors really wondering, what am I getting from this? So I think it's really important, that people do, sometimes they'll just start an Instagram and you'll look and you're like, you did one post in a month. You know what I mean? Like, I'm sorry, I know it's hard work, but at the same time, you're not giving your sponsors what they need.
Well, I think that's a great point too, in that you got to really tell the story in real time. And however you got to do that, that's what you got to do. Where you have to have somebody who, hopefully, you got a really good buddy of some sort who can help do that with you, and while you're trying to take care of other commitments. It's just, but yeah, I mean, you really got to tell the story in real time, and you got to then wrap up your story kind of when it's over, and like you said, it keeps people engaged, and it just keeps people following that arc. It's almost like like the old soap operas or whatever. It's really those formats where you're telling this story, and then people you got to keep them engaged to keep following it.
Yeah. And I mean, I do a lot of giveaways on my social media to the fans, you know what I mean? And why do I do that? Because I want them to be engaged. At the end of the day, it costs me some money, you know what I mean? And I don't see anyone else doing this, to be honest, in the world of rally. But for me, like, I've grown up in the sport for so many years, and I see all these fans that don't have the opportunity to come to races and meet us and be involved with us. So if I can run a competition and there's 10 prizes, it's a signed t-shirt by Travis, a signed poster or whatever, and this person can somehow become engaged through these giveaways, now they continue their love of rallying, you know what I mean? And they continue to follow Subaru or Travis or I or whatever. So I feel that, even if people have 100 followers on Instagram, those 100 followers can be engaged, and then they repost about it, and all of a sudden you've picked up another 5 followers, So it's just, like I said before, that being creative thing really engages people. And I get a great feeling when I tell someone, hey, you won the signed t-shirt, and they're like, wow, I've never won anything in my life before. And it's a good feeling of giving back to people as well. So I guess for me, rally is still very new in America. So, to have fans out there and people that are following it, and to engage them as much as I can by, the other day on my story, I was waiting for Travis at the airport and I showed people the recce car. I was like, hey, this is our WRX recce car. Here's my 2 GoPros. Here's my monits, which are the trip meters. Here's this and that. Quick little video, maybe a minute long, to engage people of, hey, because so many people are like, what's a recce car? You know what I mean? So, okay, a recce car is this. We drive all the stages in this. normal row speeds. Travis tells me the notes to write down. I write them down. So that answered that question for the many fans that aren't sure when I talk about a recce car. And then you might be out on recce and you might do a little clip of, inside the car, and Travis is telling me what to write down and I'm writing it down. So people then, oh, okay. So Travis tells Rhianon what notes to write. He tells her what he sees and Rhianon writes them down. Oh, why do you do a second pass of reconnaissance? Oh, well, I need notes back. Travis needs to check them. So all these processes, we talk about this and that in our comments, but a lot of time people still don't understand what that means. So I think it's really important that, when engaging the audience, we also explain to them what rally is and how, and then people become more interested, because when I write recce car, they now identify, oh, the recce car is what they drive to write their notes in. So I think that's all really important.
Yeah, I think everybody in motorsport needs to take that moment to engage with somebody in those short, whether you stand there and sign an autograph or anything, just engage with someone. That 5 seconds, 10 seconds, whatever that is, can literally have a lifetime impact on someone, and you see it over and over and over again.
Exactly.
You see, you always see like when the newer generation of racer comes along, like NASCAR, IndyCar, and they show the photos of them getting autographs when they were kids from who were the big drivers at that time. And it's this thing that just kind of feeds itself, just, you never know who that other person's going to be.
100%. And being a good role model is really important to me, because, I was a PE teacher and I was, teaching the up and coming kids of the future, you know what I mean? Then when I become a professional co-driver, I'm one of the only full-time female professional co-drivers in the world. It's quite a male-dominated sport, motorsport, as we know. So for me, if I have those little girls that come up at a rally and they're 5 years old, and I take a photo with them and I talk to them and I say, hey, do you want to be a rally co-driver one day? And a lot of them say no, but I'm okay with that. It's still, to me, it's a way of, encouraging young girls that I mean, I'm from country Victoria in Australia with a population of 800 people. And I didn't get my passport till I was 27 years old. And here I am at 41 and I live in Idaho in America, and I'm a dual citizen. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, for me, a big thing is teaching people that, dream big, because at the end of the day, you just never know what's in front of you and what opportunities arise. Because when I was 24 years old, did I ever think that me starting rallying then was going to be something that was life-changing for me? No. So even there's so many kids I feel like give up on their dreams at a young age because they're like 15 and they're like, I can't do that anymore because this happened and this happened. And it's like, okay, well, I won the American Rally Championship when I turned 40 years old. So, and I got my passport when I was 27, and then I traveled to, 20 countries racing all over the world. So I think that the cool thing is that people should always just never, tell themselves that something's not possible, because I believe that anything is possible if you work hard enough.
I agree.
Well,
I don't always follow that advice, by the way, but I absolutely agree with you.
That is true. Well, Scott, you have anything else?
I don't. I just want to say it's been an absolute pleasure. I think people such as yourself, the co-drivers, and the sidecar racers of the world are two of the craziest people in the world, because you're actually getting into vehicles piloted by someone else, putting full trust in them. But we're thankful you do it, because somebody's got to do it, right? And we wouldn't have it if you didn't. So thank you so much. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. I think sidecar racers are definitely braver than me.
They're crazy. Absolute crazy.
Exactly. I appreciate coming on your show, guys. And I look forward to listening to the podcast and following you guys.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Have a great night.
You too. Bye.
Bye.
Take care.